All right, we're recording.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Patty, I'll be the hostess for this part. So I wanted to welcome you all tonight for our In the Know to Grow 2022. And we wanted to bring you a presentation on spotted lanternfly because we know it's coming. I mean, the hatch is coming for those of us in New Jersey. In northern Jersey, you have a couple more weeks yet. Central, where we are, Central South, it's getting close, another week or two. And then further south, they actually may be already starting to hatch. So my name is Susan M. Hart-Servideo. I am one of the horticulturists at the Rutgers Cooperative Extension in Ocean County. And with us tonight is Patty Dixon, who is one of the other horticulturists in the office, and one of our Rutgers Master Gardeners, Jean Kramer, is on board as well to help answer some of the questions in the Q&A. We do have your videos, microphones, and the chat feature has been disabled. So if you do have questions that you want to give to the panelists, just put it in the Q&A. And then when they are able to, they will answer, and the answer should pop up for everybody to see. Some of the questions may not be answered there because I'm going to be going over it. We have a lot of eager beavers sometimes on our programs and start asking questions right away. And we know we're going to get to it eventually. So I may run a little longer because the PowerPoint is it's about an hour and a half, but then if we do some questions at the end too, so we might run a little longer, but we are recording the program, so we hope that if you are unable to stay on, you can come back and enjoy the program. You can always email us. You can go on our Rutgers RCE of Ocean County website where it says to register, but that is our website, so you can go on there and it tells you how to contact us as well, Patty or myself. And our Master Gardener helpline phone number is also there as well. So again, thank you again for joining us. And I'm going to, if I can get my PowerPoint to start moving. Okay, so tonight again, talking about the biology and management of this new invasive pest, the spotted lanternfly. I was able to speak with quite a few of Penn State's extensionists regarding the spotted lanternfly, and the reason I'm using their PowerPoint is because they kind of summed everything up succinctly, and they've been doing the most research since, unfortunately, Pennsylvania is where this phenomenon had unfortunately spread from or started. Unfortunately, had come in the states that way. So we're going to say, what is a spotted lanternfly? The spotted lanternfly it was discovered in 2014. We're entomologists in the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. Sorry, it's a plant hopper. I messed up. It's a plant hopper insect. It is native to Asia, and it was found again in the southeastern Pennsylvania in 2014. And it's also been found to be invasive in Korea and Japan. And it came over, they believe it came over with a stone shipment that came on pallets that they didn't realize the eggs, nobody knew what they were. So nobody thought anything of it. And oh, these are interesting. And then finding that these critters, we have a similar habitat temperature wise. So these spotted lanternfly were able to, unfortunately propagate. So the spotted lanternflies belong to the order Hemiptera. Hemip, sorry, Hemiptera. And you can see these are some of the other. This is a locust. Katydid, no, excuse me, locust. You've got the marmorated stink bug, aphids, and this is a plant hopper. So these are also other insects that belong in this order. And it belongs into the family of Fulgoridae or Goridae. And these are some really other colorful uh, relatives to the spotted lanternfly. But the spotted lanternfly is the only known plant pest in its family. So it's again something unique. Was again nothing that we knew what was going to happen when had never seen this. So it was really kind of cool. It's a pretty insect, but it we are we'll talk about what it does. So the current distribution for the spotted lanternfly this is one of the maps that they updated about every 2 to 3 weeks. So this is March 28th is the most current that I could find right now. And you can see it has spread. So the blue highlighted areas are the current spotted infestation where it's present, where in other words, these are the areas where the spotted lanternfly have been found to reproduce, that there are egg masses. They're finding the full, all the stages of the lanternfly. And then the red outlined areas are areas that are quarantined. So in each state, there are areas that are quarantined, and we'll talk a little bit about what the quarantine means. And you can't really see it in this particular picture, but if you do go on and check out this map, there are some purple dots, and in those purple, where those counties that the purple dots are in, means that they have found individual spotted lanternflies in one stage or another, but they didn't actually find breeding populations at that point. So unfortunately it's spreading, and we are seeing that it's spreading along a lot of the interstate and highways. It's unfortunately traveling on trucks, and it's a hitchhiker. So we'll take a look and see how we can help that if we can. So these are the life stages of the spotted lanternfly. So A is definitely your egg mass. It kind of looks like a gray putty on surfaces, usually barks of trees, or the tree bark, but it can be on any kind of a surface, generally a flatter surface versus something that's really rough or corrugated. The B is the first early nymphs, so the first, second, and third nymphs. The fourth nymph is C, and this is when we usually tend to see it now because now it's getting a little bigger, half-inch in size, and then we do have the adults where the wings are closed, and when the wings are open, you see that red. So it's kind of like it just becomes a little more showy when the wings are open. Okay, so this is what the first instar to third instar looks like. We find these, they're black body with white dots. They're tiny. The first instar, when it first comes out of an egg, is small like a tick, and then each instar is about half or double its size, and they are strong jumpers. They will often jump away when approached. And when they first hatch, they're less than about a quarter of an inch, an eighth of an inch, but will grow up to a quarter of an inch. So you have, we are also looking at growing degree days. So for those of you that are online and know about growing degree days, that's the accumulated days of heat temperature that we use to help figure out approximately when insects are going to hatch and whatnot. And the first instar should be coming out approximately around 250 growing degree days, which here in central Jersey, southern Jersey, would be about May 1st. So we're looking. Some of those, our neighbors further to the south, will be already seeing some of these instars hatching. Spotted lanternflies hatching. And then up north, you'll probably see it a little bit more into the second or third week in May. Just depends on what our weather does. Here in New Jersey, it has been a little crazy. So, so here's some pictures of on a post in a vineyard. You can see there's lots of egg masses. There's this gray patchy stuff that's on this post, and then the little blacks are all the hatchlings that have come out in the looks like first instars, and they can sometimes look like spiders. So it's kind of creepy. And then here's on a plant stem, they like to go upward generally, or upward on a plant because they want to get to the top in the canopy. If it was on a tree, they want to get to the canopy where the nice soft foliage and places where they can go to feed. So here is a plant stem, and you can see the person's hand behind it to show you, and they're all facing upward, so they tend to move in an upward position. They have been found to be up in the canopy. The winds or something could knock them out of the tree, and they drop to the ground, and then they climb and go back up again. So they are quick movers as well, but jumpers. They are a jumping insect at this point. They have no wings. There's a little video. Oh, that's so cool. Gross, but cool. So, okay. So in the newly hatched spotted lanternfly, the timeline, you have the cluster remains in their egg mass for a short time. They move to find a place to feed, often to the top of the canopy because they prefer that tender growth. And then they disperse, moving throughout the landscape to feed on various hosts. They can have, it's crazy, they can have up to 70 different types of plants that they go on, and I'll go into more detail about that. The fourth instar. So this is insects. The instars are their stages. They molt and grow a new exoskeleton, and then they go into this fourth instar, and that is when they get this black striping, white dots, red coloring. And they are strong jumpers really here, and they will often jump away, again, approached or prodded. So if you want to kill them, sounds gross, but you want to get in front of them if you can, because they'll jump towards you. And I know that scares a lot of people, so it may not be something you want to do. But instead of coming in from behind them in order to try to capture one or whatnot, you want to get more towards the front of them if you can. But this fourth instar would be coming out approximately around 800 to 825 growing degree days, which would be starting sometime in July. And they can be active or around, before they molt into an adult through September. So they do have a longer time frame to feed. So some of the lookalikes for the nymphs is the brown marmorated stink bug. This is a nymph version of the brown marmorated stink bug. This first picture on the top left. Wheel bugs, you can see when wheel bugs hatch out, they look like little spiders too, except they have 6 legs, not 8. But it's kind of cool. Ticks, again, they have the 8 legs, and then the box elder bugs, again, just coloring, you're seeing some reddish colors, you're seeing white. A lot of people can, when you're not able to have a picture right next to each other to see and compare to. So it is something that, you have to be careful and be observant to kind of see what you're looking for. And so when it decides to molt, so you can see the exoskeleton, the leg parts, the adult molts out of the exoskeleton. So the nymph is molting into an adult. And so here you can see the fourth instar on the stem of the plant with an adult, excuse me. And I don't know, like I said, I think they're cool to see, but I know how problematic they are for our nursery and agricultural landscapes. So it's definitely a problem, but they are kind of cool to see until they're too many of them. So it is not uncommon to see the mix of different stages and life stages. Sometimes you can also still have some of the first to third instars, the black and white ones, on the plant. But generally, once we're getting into the adult stage, you're going to see mostly the red or the adults together. So the adults have, they have the black spots, the beige or mauve colored wings with stripes towards the base. And adults like the nymphs, adults like the nymphs can often be found accumulating on one tree. These adults are feeding on a maple tree and will often be found near branch or trunk unions. So you can see they do tend to congregate together. So it's usually not just a single one. You usually will find a group. But again, just like everybody, there's a loner in every group. So you can find just singles here and there, but generally look around and you'll find more. So the adults, the spotted lanternfly adults can be easily sexed. So the males, so you would look at the bottom end of the abdomen, and the males it's just dark, whereas the female has this red appendage marking, if you want to call it. The females also have a brighter yellow abdomen that then gets swollen with eggs when she's ready, when she's mated and ready to go and lay some eggs. And so they're saying here, both males and females, they both have yellow abdomens. The degree of yellow you see depends on how much the adults have fed and how much their body fats they have. So then again, when the female goes to lay her eggs, she is ready to to do so. You can see her actually have a swollen abdomen. So other insects that look like the adult spotted lanternfly is the Ailanthus webworm. We see that insect a lot in the fall. The Cecropia moth and the tiger moth, because again, the coloring just kind of like, ooh, you see something flying and it's got wings. So, we try to make sure we identify the insects correctly so that we can make sure we're looking at the right, we really do like our moths. The Ailanthus webworm, maybe not so much, but Ailanthus, so we'll show you, is a Latin name for a tree of heaven. So if we can find an insect that eats tree of heaven, more so than the spotted lanternfly, that's a good thing. But to also show you what the spotted lanternfly egg masses do, the eggs are laid on any surface where vines, trunks, posts, stones, lawns, furniture, etc. And this is a little video of her actually laying eggs and then putting this coating to protect them. So it's pretty cool. They are often laid in the fall. The eggs are the overwintering stage. The adults will freeze with a hard freeze, and the eggs then overwinter and hatch in the spring. On average, there are 35 to 40 eggs per mass. And generally, I believe a female can lay up to two egg masses. Each female can lay up to 2 egg masses, I believe. But the female protect their eggs with this covering. And again, it looks like a gray putty. And where are they laid, or they're laid on what? Here's on a light bulb. Here's a tire, just laying around, lawn furniture cushions. They can be on anything, and this is the camping equipment. So that's what the problem is that if you don't inspect things that you're moving from state to state, or you're bringing your things from your secondary to bring it to your secondary home here in Jersey Shore, if you're on the shore, you can inadvertently bring this pest and create bigger problems. And other egg lookalikes, again, to see the difference of what you're looking at. So gypsy moth, which is now also called the spongy moth, is this gray kind of almost looks like insulation, like a fuzzy patch of insulation. And you see the spotted lanternfly egg mass patch is more gray. Lichen, we get a lot of questions this past September, October into the fall. What's this green patch that I swear I have spotted lanternfly, and it was not. It's actually lichen. And then a wasp's nest. So on this piece of metal, this it looks like mud, and that's I believe it's a mud dauber wasp nest. So, there are some other things that look alike. And we talk a little bit about why, what is on their menu, what do they like, and why they do what they do. But it is a successful invasive species because it has such a large host range. So over 70 different plant species. And that's pretty amazing. And they're in different plant families. It's not like they're all one type of plant in one family that it does. They are, crossing habitats, so to speak. But the host selection appears to depend on the proximity. What else is in the landscape? So from where they're feeding here to what's next. And seasonality, what time of the year it is. But the spotted lanternfly does have a few hosts. And the nymph's favorite type of plants that you're going to see them on more than anybody else would be roses, whether they're cultivated or the multiflora, the wild rose. Grapes, wild grapevines. So in the woods, we have the wild grapevine and the cultivated, which would be on our vineyards. Tree of heaven is a big, unfortunately, supporter of these guys. They just like that plant. It's black walnut and styrax, which is another type of tree. And they are plants, they seem to be their favorites. And then also in the adults, again, the grapes come into play. So all stages can be on grapes, the nymphs and the adults. The tree of heaven, red and silver maples here in Ocean County. We found a lot a lot of egg masses on the red and silver maples here, which we first started dealing with it here in Ocean County, whereas other counties farther west of us and in Pennsylvania have been dealing with this for a lot longer. But they also were noticing it again on styrax. River birch was also a host, willows and sumac. So it's definitely odd, totally different plant families. So what they won't go on, there are very few plants. um, there are very few plants that are not fed on by spotted lanternfly, and the plants that are not typically hosts may suddenly become the host if there's a limit, or the best option is no longer available to the spotted lanternfly. So generally speaking, these hosts are not preferred. These coming up hosts are not preferred food of spotted lanternfly. Eggs may still be deposited because the females are just trying to lay them wherever they can as quick as they can before that cold weather comes in. So conifers, pears, especially the calorie pears, they generally aren't on them, but we can find egg masses on there. And the cherries, the black cherry. So the black cherry itself is not necessarily food for the nymphs and the adults, but it is definitely a popular place for them to lay their eggs. And we are actively, Penn State is actively researching what makes certain plants better hosts than others. So the research is still continuing. And again, this pest has only been really studied for us in in Pennsylvania, and we're starting here in New Jersey as well. Even more so, Rutgers has got some researchers on it as well, and it just seems to be ever changing. The spotted lanternfly, this is what we know right now, but it's still an ongoing process, and it's morphing. It's just we shall see what comes through. So, unfortunately, yes, this is a tree that is covered in spotted lanternfly adults, mostly in this photograph. And they said the child went out and said, "Mommy, my car is moving." Emily Schwackhammer was sharing with me that one of the first calls was like, "What? What do you mean it's moving? There's things moving on my." The mom came out and said, "What is the in?" Yes, the alarms went out, so to speak. But the one thing we do know is that the spotted lanternfly really do like our grapes. They like sugaries. They're feeding on the sugars in the plants, and grapes, unfortunately, my wine, I want to make sure that we have our wine industry is protected as much as we can. So if you live near a vineyard, maybe see if there's anything, or keep an eye on your property to see if you can kill as many of these either nymphs, adults, whatever you can find. But we'll talk about controls. This is also another picture of the spotted lanternfly on a looks like a sycamore. Maple. Sorry, it's smooth enough for a maple. And it's just crazy that the things that these guys are on and how many can be on one plant. So how does the spotted lanternfly cause plant damage? The spotted lanternfly feeds on the plant sap through its piercing, sucking mouth parts. So if you're familiar with a way an aphid sucks the juices, the phloem, the sugars out of from a plant and produces a honeydew, that can be an issue as time goes on. But so the spotted lanternfly uses this proboscis and this mouth part that comes, I shouldn't say a proboscis, it's actually, it pierces in. So it's more of a stylet, and it excretes honeydew or sugar water as it feeds. And it's somewhat reliant on the turgor pressure of the plant. So it needs the sap to be flowing. So if you have a wilted plant, the insect would move on because there's not enough water pressure or turgor pressure to keep that sap moving and flowing for these guys to suck it up, so to speak. So why or how does it cause plant damage? It's a plant stressor. So the spotted lanternfly, it starts to feed and it stresses out the plant. It can include plant diseases, so plant stressors. What other reasons why the plant's stressed? Again, plant diseases, weather, flooding or drought, imbalance of nutrients, and insect feeding. So to date, spotted lanternfly has not been observed to kill plants except for the tree of heaven, small tree saplings, and grapevines. So I know a lot of people are worried about that they're going to be killing the forests and stuff. As of right now, or to date, as of when this where the research has been done for this particular PowerPoint, which was last year, that they have not found any major deaths of specific stands of trees. Spotted lanternfly may increase plant sensitivity to other stressors. So because the spotted lanternfly are feeding, the plants can now maybe be more susceptible to disease or unfavorable weather conditions that could then cause or reduce growth, create dieback, or even possibly death as a secondary problem. So the spotted lanternfly stresses that out even more, but then comes along the cold freeze or something, and now it's no longer winter hardy, and the plant can't hibernate or go to sleep for the winter in the correct manner, so that when spring comes, it just can't push out its new leaves. So what happens is a branch with yellowing leaves exhibits dieback from stress or from spotted lanternfly feeding. And if you can see this branch, you can see the leaves to the bottom corners are all wilted. But if you look up on along that branch, you will see the nymphs of spotted lanternfly on that branch. And again, enough of them can suck the life, so to speak, out of the plant. So honeydew. Why can honeydew, be an issue? Um, like humans, spotted lanternfly have a complicated gut, complete with a microbiome and endosymbionts that keep them alive. And that looks gross, but in any case, it's in their gut there, and their gut filters the plant sap, keeps the nutrients they like nitrogen, and discards what they don't, which is the sugar water. And this excess liquid is discarded from the spotted lanternfly and is delicately called honeydew. Sometimes, we call insects waste frass. In this particular case, it's honeydew. So, and no, it's not that kind of honeydew. So you can sort of see let me kind of run that one again. You can see it dripping and squirting gross from the insect. It's just that I don't know how these things do the things that they do. So with many spotted lanternfly feeding, honeydew builds up quite a bit on and around the plants on surfaces. And if you're familiar with aphids and sooty mold, that's how we we'll be getting into that in here too. And why does the honeydew matter? Honeydew attracts other insects for free sugar meal, including ants, wasps, and bees. So if you see a lot more ant activity or even bee activity near the tree and you don't see spotted look around because they may be there. But the honeydew is also an excellent source for growing media for mold. So sooty mold quickly colonizes and grows on everything, everywhere that the honeydew is. Sooty mold is a photosynthetic block, photosynthetic block causing dieback of leaves that are covered in the mold, because now it's blocking the sunlight. The leaves can no longer photosynthesize and therefore they drop off. The plant can't support them anymore. So sooty mold grows on anything, including cars, furniture, decks, making it a nuisance. Trees that overhang your backyard, deck, parking areas, etc. may be problematic for this reason. Also, if it's you're sitting on your deck and stuff is raining down on you, gets kind of gross. So you can see I'll go back there. So you watch for stopped vehicle sign. That is honeydew, the sooty mold that has grown on that sign, and now it's a hazard for traffic. So it can be a problem. And then the sooty mold on the steps, it's unsightly. So, okay, now what? What do we do now? So what is what control is being done for spotted lanternfly. In the USDA and the Department of Agriculture have partnered together, and the PA Department of Agriculture, and also in New Jersey, we do have the New Jersey Department of Agriculture is also working with the USDA to do what spotted lanternfly control they can. The control efforts are focused in areas of high risk for future spread, including rail lines, ports, and highways. So they're doing a lot of, I believe, truck stop checks, things like that. If somebody finds a moving population, they try to get it there. Also, if there's any large areas of tree of heaven, they're trying to target what they can. It's a lot of acreage, not a lot of staff. So as much as they can, they're doing what we can. So if a new detection occurs out of the current infested area, the USDA and the PDA and the NJ Department of Ag are also sent to those locations for potential eradication to try and get them before they really get moving. So what are some of the management options for spotted lanternfly? These are some of the, we're going to go over each one. Big one, you don't move the spotted lanternfly. So it also, management also will depend on the time of the year. So any time of the year, you don't want to move spotted lanternfly. If you find eggs, smush them. If you find adults, smush them. If you find nymphs, smush them. Fly swatters work great. Not that we want to be swatting and killing things, and we normally are not pushing to kill things, but this is one of those unfortunate creatures that needs to go. Scraping and smashing eggs anytime in the winter. June, July, and August, the eggs, there aren't eggs being laid yet because now they've hatched into nymphs. But starting in September, again, you're going to start looking for patches of the eggs. Use tree traps, contact insecticides. We'll talk about some of those and some other applications. So again, don't move it any month of the year. Try that. It's a passive, so to speak, way. You don't have to worry about harming the environment. It's being observant in your environment to check around when you are going to pack things or move things, or you have a moving truck. Make sure if the spotted lanternfly are around in your area and you're moving or traveling into another area, take a look on the trailers, on the wheel wells. Just be very observant. So right now in Pennsylvania, the spotted lanternfly quarantine are in these counties as of 2021. And so the existing quarantines are in the purple, and the blue are the counties that were just added in 2021. So it is unfortunately still moving. And if you were to look at the roadmap of Pennsylvania, the counties that are there, I believe that is the Pennsylvania Turnpike runs in that way. And Franklin County, I believe, is I-80 going south off the top of my head. I forget now. I've traveled it myself, but so it is moving from highways. And it's getting moved, unfortunately. So keep an eye when you're traveling. In New Jersey, these are our quarantines here. The red is outlining the counties that have quarantine. Ocean County does not have a quarantine yet. We do have spotted lanternfly. Right now, I believe all of New Jersey has populations of spotted lanternfly, except in Cape May. That may change this year, but Cape May was the only county that did not have active populations. They had individuals, but not active populations as of 2021. So we'll be looking and keeping an eye out for that. So what does the quarantine mean? And in Pennsylvania, as well as in New Jersey, is that no one may intentionally move viable life stages of the spotted lanternfly. So examples of regulated items, any kind of vehicles, tractors, mowers, recreational vehicles, trailers, motorhomes, anything that you are taking on road trips. So you want to keep an eye. If you're going through areas and you're seeing spotted lanternfly, check your vehicles and make sure you don't have any stowaways. Packing materials. pots, crates, pallets, anything like that. Hard goods, stones, tile, decorative materials that you'd be moving from place to place for any purpose. Firewood, nursery stock. I believe they also said in building equipment or waste, building waste, landscape waste, you want to be careful that you are not, unfortunately, carting these guys along with you. So again, pay attention. So you want to stop the spread, and the best way to try to stop the spread is there's a checklist. Penn State has one. We have one for the Rutgers. Sorry, Rutgers doesn't have one, but the New Jersey Department of Ag has a checklist as well, very similar to the one from Penn State, which is pictured here. So everybody should inspect their vehicles before moving or even camping, just going away for the weekends. Pay attention. Use the checklist for residents to help you identify the spotted lanternfly and the areas where they may be present. You know, kind of, again, check outdoor sinks, check fishing rod, fishing tackle boxes, check anything, coolers that might have sat outside. If you're moving any outdoor furniture, chairs, tables, just check all that. Children's toys. I know my kids had their toys all over the yard and they'd stay out for a while. It can be a source of where these critters are, the egg masses, or even adults or nymphs could be just hanging out. So you want to be careful. There are some links here in the PowerPoint, which we will be sending out with the recording. We will be sending out the copy of the PDF of this PowerPoint presentation, as well as resource links for everyone as well. So stop the spread. Here's another, again, an obvious picture of a deck chair or, outdoor equipment, grills, fire furnitures. One of the other ones that was kind of the mobile fire pits. The fire pits that you can use a little gas hookup. That could also be another place that these guys can hitch a ride from or on. So you want, especially when moving within or out of a quarantine zone, just when you're moving, period. Don't move firewood. Keep the firewood local, keep it close to where you purchased it. And don't park under trees that are infested. Or if you do, leave your windows rolled up for sure if you have to park there because it's the only place to go. But here is a perfect example that these trees might be a possible walnut and a maple. It's underneath the motorhome is underneath these trees, and so the critters can be falling off, not realizing you drive away, and now they can hang on for a little while, but eventually they're going to fall off, and if they don't die when they fall off, they're going to say, oh, I'm in a new place, let me see what kind of food is here. So again, be careful. In Pennsylvania, New Jersey does have a permit as well, but this is specifically Pennsylvania's permit, spotted lanternfly permit for businesses and organizations. They want you to make sure that truck drivers, anybody that's a heavy equipment operator, anybody that has a CDL basically needs to pay attention, and when you're carting or moving materials from different counties, different states, especially if they are in the quarantine zone, you must have a permit. So that is a big deal. So there is a permit test in Penn State, and I believe I'd have to check and see whether it's Rutgers that has it or the USDA. The New Jersey Department of Agriculture that has our permit here for New Jersey. I forgot to check that, so I apologize on that. Again, another control option that is really, okay for the environment, you're not spraying any chemicals and whatnot, is the scraping or smashing the eggs. So what you can do is scrape and smash. You'll see a lot of these cards. I have one here as well that you can scrape and crash. It's basically like a credit card, a plastic card, but it's hard enough so that you can scrape off the egg mass and put it into alcohol, rubbing alcohol, hand sanitizer. I've heard nail polish remover, just something that will smother and submerge and drown these things. So that is, an important an important way to get rid of them. And again, you'll find in a heavy infested area, you will find a ton of these eggs. Um, the egg masses in particular are an easy way in the wintertime to keep looking and searching and trying to get rid of these things before they hatch out. Even now, you can look around in your neighborhood and obviously property that you're allowed to walk on, not in your neighbors' homes if you're not allowed on the property. So you want to be careful about that. But you can search for these egg masses and kill what you can reach. So you can smash the eggs with the hard flat surface, and smashed eggs will eventually smash eggs evenly, and you will actually gross, but you'll actually hear them burst. You'll hear them pop. It's gross, but it is a way to ensure that you are killing this invader. So one thing is that with the scrape and smash method is on an average, less than 2% of the eggs are laid in a reachable distance. So less than 10, from 10 feet and lower on a tree, leaving 98% of the egg masses are above your reach. Okay, so we're saying smash, smash, smash. Any way that you can get rid of these egg masses or even adults or nymphs, if you can reach any, it's just that many less that could possibly be potential egg layers and continuing on the generation. So you will not be able to reach all of the egg masses, so be prepared to potentially take additional management actions as the summer comes along. So okay, so tree traps. Penn State has come up with some methods here. The tree traps, the spotted lanternfly nymphs and adults walk upwards on the tree trunks and feed higher in the trees. So traps capture them as they're walking up the tree. So in this picture, if you look close enough, they blend in, you can actually see quite a few adult spotted lanternfly on the bark of this tree. So that's what makes it a little harder if you don't really realize what you're looking for. You have to get up close and personal, unfortunately, to find these guys sometimes. And you can see them moving. And that straight up. That's crazy. It's like the ants go marching one by one, right? So circle traps, one of the most effective trap is a circle trap. It's similar to a funnel minnow trap, in which you can purchase it or you can make it yourself. So there's a homemade version. That is a screening material with something to help keep it open enough, and the screening material goes around the trunk of the tree at the base there, and the spotted lanternflies will walk up and get trapped into this baggie, which then you can once they're dead, or you need to empty it, you can empty that bag or replace the bag and put a new one on. And we are actually in Ocean County. We're actually doing a workshop next week, and then we have another one scheduled for May 11th to show you guys it's a workshop and making these spotted lanternfly traps. So if you're local or you want to make the trip down, you can call the office. We'll put the number up at the end. But you can find commercial versions. I've seen them for up to $40. You can make a homemade one for 10. So they're not the prettiest things on the trees, but it is a way to get as many as you can without having to be next to the tree every 2 minutes. Sticky bands. Sticky bands can be very effective, but you have to watch because it does capture other animals, pollinators. We've seen birds. We've seen little bats stuck to them. So you need to try to do you need to put a wildlife barrier around the sticky band to prevent this. So what you can see here is there's the yellow part is a sticky tape, paper. There's a couple different brands that are out there that you put around the trunk of the tree. And then you can see they're just pleating window screen material and thumbtacking it at the top so that the bottom, the underneath is open, and so that the spotted lanternfly can crawl up as nymph or adults and get stuck on that tape. But it will protect of anybody that's accidentally butterflies and bees that are accidentally just landing on that tree trunk if they don't get stuck to it. So again, there's no way to prevent the spotted lanternfly from moving onto your property. and using a tree traps alone may not eliminate the spotted lanternfly, but it will help lower the numbers or lessen um, the future generations. So, unfortunately, sometimes we have to resort to an insecticide or possible chance, mostly for homeowners. It's not really recommended for homeowners to be spraying, especially 40-foot trees. You're just not going to get the coverage. But these are some options to make you aware that if you do hire somebody, what might be out there and when the correct time to do it. And you're targeting the certain life stages of the insect. So the contact insecticides, systemic applications, and imidacloprid and tefloran. So again, whenever you're at the store, purchasing insecticides can be difficult. There's so many choices. So what do? Um, don't Number one, in any extension, I don't care what state you're in, no home remedies to control the spotted lanternfly. Don't mix this and that and make, a science experiment. It's unsafe for humans, pets, plants, and it is illegal. Um, there is no there's no information on them. You don't know how to use it. You don't know how much of the product is going to be effective to kill the insect or be too much and kill the plants or poison yourself. So how to store them, and then how might they be toxic to your family, pets, to beneficial insects, and to other plants in your yard. So you really want to use something that is labeled and that is researched to work for this insect, for any insect. This is for any insecticide. So pesticide safety: protect yourself, avoid overreacting, and teach others not to overreact. I have to just say, in September last year, we were getting call after call on our phone lines at the Ag Center in Toms River, and these things. What are these things? Oh my God, they're going to eat me. Oh my God, what are they going to do? So people were they're panicking, seeing these new invasive insects that's going to kill the world. No, that's why our presentation tonight and all the educational programs that have been offered through Penn State and through Cornell, all the other different educational universities and state universities, are there to give you the knowledge so you know how to handle this without overreacting. And to protect yourself using, again, that personal protective equipment, which after COVID, or with COVID, we know all about the different types of personal protective equipment so that you can avoid insecticide exposure. Only use registered insecticides to kill spotted lanternfly. Always, always read the label and follow the directions. More is not better. In this case, is never better. You want to use the right amounts and avoid using the same insecticide over and over so you don't get resistant insects that become resistant to that product. So 1, protect yourself. 2, apply a product correctly. And 3, protect the environment by protecting the pollinators, streams and wetlands and water sources. So protect the pollinators. Don't spray plants that are in flower, in bloom. Also choosing the least toxic insecticide that is still effective for what you need to do. And this is for any pesticide, for any insect. We're specifically talking about spotted lanternfly, but these are 3 good things to remind you about. For more information for spotted lanternfly management and pesticide safety, Penn State does have information on that on their websites. Rutgers also has a pesticide safety as well. So insecticide control specifically for the spotted lanternfly, or insecticides in general, I should say, systemics and contacts. Systemics mean that the insecticide is absorbed into the plant. It can kill the insects when they feed on the treated plant. And the systemic insecticides can be used, can be more complicated, but they do tend to offer control for longer. there are pros and cons for both. So contact insecticides, or when an insecticide is sprayed on the insect or on a surface, it has a little bit that the insect can be exposed to that has some residual, and contact insecticides generally offer control for a shorter period of time. So again, what is going to work is going to depend on the situation you have. For Penn State has one. The Rutgers, I have the link at the end. The Rutgers Spotted Lanternfly page also talks about for homeowner recommendations, and we also use the New Jersey Department of Agriculture recommendations as well. But Spotted Lanternfly management for residents, homeowners are different than businesses. So there are a lot of different things. So the big thing is arming yourself with, not arming, informing yourself of what do spotted lanternfly do. They don't bite humans. They are an insect plant pest. Um, and that is where they do the most damage. They don't sting us. They are a nuisance pest for us as humans. However, they are affecting our agricultural crops, which then can affect our bottom line, and also our adult beverages. Not that that's the only thing that it's a problem for, but our crops are definitely something we want to protect. So one last major topic is the tree of heaven. And the tree of heaven, you always hear that talked about because spotted lanternfly seem to gravitate towards this plant. It is one in their native habitat in Asia and China, where they found where spotted lanternfly is naturally occurring. This is their happy plant. This is their happy place. So knowing what a tree of heaven, identifying what a tree of heaven is, can help you with some management strategies, actually. So if you have a tree of heaven on your property, this is a good place to focus on your spotted lanternfly management, because you can target. You can target the spotted lanternfly specifically by either one, removing the tree of heaven, which the tree of heaven is actually kind of cool, and it was brought to the United States in the early, I believe, late 1800s, early 1900s, and it was a great street tree. A tree grows in Brooklyn is a tree of heaven. But the seeds are very viable, and they are very prolific seeders. So that's the problem, is that the seeds drop, and they're an adventitious tree. They will grow wherever they can. They don't have a lot of specifications on where what they need in order to grow. So removing the tree of heaven or treating the tree of heaven are two options. So if you remove the tree of heaven, can help reduce, again, a hot spot on your property. Don't expect this to eliminate spotted lanternfly from your property altogether. However, it'll help, but it's not going to be the end all to be all. But the removal of the tree of heaven must include an herbicide. Tree of heaven is known to, if you cut the main plant down, the roots will send up suckers and more of them. So it's like a hydra, the Greek hydra. It just produces, you cut off one and four more pop up. And so having an herbicide, a brush herbicide, something that's going to kill tree woody growth, is something you need to do in order to treat the stump. So treating the tree of heaven, oops, let me just make sure. Yeah. So treating a tree of heaven can be treated with a systemic. So you make the tree of heaven the trap tree. So you can target only that tree for that particular insecticide systemic treatment, so that you're not spraying the whole yard. You're not spraying, all the beneficials. You're just concentrating on this particular tree. So it's correctly applied systemic insecticides such as Dinoturfuran. Sorry, I'm so bad sometimes with the names. It can stay active for several weeks, killing the spotted lanternfly that feed on the tree. Now, timing is important. You don't want to be putting on a systemic insecticide when the tree of heaven's in full flower, because then this is where we do have other insects that can be harmed by the bees, by other pollinators that are coming to get the pollen and the nectar from the tree of heaven flowers, or any other plant flowers with any other insecticide. So identification is important, so knowing which tree you have and knowing if you do have a tree of heaven. And that's where your extension office in your county can help you. If you suspect you have a tree of heaven, you can usually send us in pictures, bring us a sample. The leaves are important. So the tree of heaven has what we call a compound leaf. It's got this long midrib with lots of little leaflets on it. I believe it's 11 to 15 leaflets on this long fronds, and the leaves can be very long. But the base of these leaflets have these 2 to 3 little lobes towards the base that is then connecting it to the I'm sitting here pointing to the PowerPoint, sorry, to the main midrib, or so to speak, of the leaf. So it has a rotten peanut butter smell or odor when crushed, and it does stink. Oh. And relatively smooth, it has a smooth leaf margin. You can see where the red is on there. And again, these 1 to 2 knobs at the base of the leaflet. And here we go, pinnately compound. Oh, sorry, 10 to 40 leaflets, depending on the size of that leaflet. So a leaf can actually be almost, what's that, a yardstick? So 3 feet in length. So they can be rather big trees, and they're messy trees, tree of heaven. But the trees reproduce by making clones, so there tends to be a thicket or a colony. The female trees also make trees. A seed, samaras, like similar to a maple, but definitely there's tons of seeds in the cluster. And the bark has an appearance of cantaloupe skin. And actually, it's kind of cool because it's relatively smooth, but you have that cantaloupe-y kind of look that's on the bark. There's so there are other lookalikes in the landscape. So is this a tree of heaven? The bark has rough bark, grooved bark, so no. It has nuts, so it doesn't have the seed heads, the samaras, and it has an evenly serrated, which means toothed edge leaf. It is not. It is a black walnut. And another one of our big lookalikes is the staghorn sumac. They have fuzzy stems, tight clusters for the flower spike. Hopefully it's not white. That tends to be more on the poison sumac, but red or burgundy colored clusters of flower spikes, and narrow, very narrow, serrated or toothed leaves. And this is a staghorn. And then, okay, so is this a tree of heaven? What does the bark look like? It's got that cantaloupe-like look. So yes, there's large leaf scars, the bark that looks like cantaloupe. Leaf scars is where the year before's leaf, or a couple of years before, where the leaf had been at one point, where the leaf is attached to the actual branch of the plant is smooth, not fuzzy. And it's a large stem. The base actually looks more swollen. And again, these leaves do have those 2 to 3 knobs. So yes, it's checked off. And yes, it is a tree of heaven. So again, for more information, Penn State has their invasive weed fact sheet about tree of heaven, which is Ailanthus altissima. Penn State, Rutgers also has one. We also have handouts on how to identify tree of heaven from the New Jersey Department of Agriculture. I know we have a lot of these flyers at our cooperative extension, and other cooperative extensions in your areas. You can check. If not, I'm sure we can ask the Department of Ag to make sure that all the extensions have some. So if you do want to come in and find out what tree of heaven, and if you have tree of heaven, we can help you with that at the extension. So your take-home messages: you can help the slow and the spread of the spotted lanternfly by checking your belongings before you move and educating others about spotted lanternfly. Do what you can to manage the spotted lanternfly, stomping, smashing. That's the physicals, but avoid overreacting to the situation. And if using an insecticide, do so safely. We want to see you for years to come, but not the insect. Spotted lanternfly can't be prevented from coming onto your property. and may require repeated management efforts to keep the populations down and manageable. And stay connected with us extension, whether it's Penn State Extension, whether you're Rutgers Extension, your state school, no matter what state you are in. I know a couple people are joining us from Ohio and Florida. So if these Ohio is starting to get some populations your way, Florida, hopefully you won't be seeing these guys anytime soon. But again, it's definitely keep stay tuned. We will have updates as this year especially progresses. So if you, this is one of the links for Penn State's extension in particular. So you can visit them online they do have an e-newsletter. So you can go on their website to join that. There's also the resources that I talked about in the PowerPoint here, the Spotted Lanternfly Management for Residents, specifically the one from Penn State, and there's the Tree of the Heaven from Penn State. And then I added, these are the links for New Jersey, www.nj.gov/agriculture. If you get on there, you can do also New Jersey Spotted Lanternfly. You can just put that in your search engine and you'll come up with quite a few different resources that are research based. So you're not getting home remedies and things like that. You are getting information from places that has been conducting research on this new invasive pest to help us control, manage, and then hopefully eliminate at some point as time goes. So I want to thank you all for joining us, and I want to really thank Heather Leach from Penn State for creating this PowerPoint. And it was just, to me, was really just succinct and telling you the basics that you need without overwhelming, well, in my opinion, overwhelming. But then again, I am a plant person and an insect person. So please, if you have questions, let's go from there. Patty, I'm going to leave on the resources page from there. So Jean and Patty, if you have any questions.
Okay. I see it. Actually, we answered a bunch of questions,
Okay.
I hope. But there was a really good one here, and it's from Pat. There was a lot of confusion last year about whether or not to report spotted lanternfly in New Jersey. Is there a requirement or not?
Okay, good question. That is a great question. And
Great
right
question.
now, that map that I showed in the beginning, or actually in the middle of the PowerPoint where it showed the quarantine areas, we know it's here in New Jersey. So you do not need to report. We know the counties, almost every county in New Jersey except Cape May has it. So you do not need to report it in New Jersey. I don't in Pennsylvania, if you are watching us from Pennsylvania, there are those counties that were not shaded in that original picture. Yes, you do want to report from those counties, but anywhere like Ocean County, we know it's here, so we don't need to report it. If you live in Cape May or you're watching from Cape May, if you do find breeding populations, yes, they want to know about it. Anybody in the Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, New York, and it looks like is up in Connecticut, and any place in these different areas that do not have any major known pests. Yes, it's up and coming, and we want to stop it.
Okay, so someone just wanted clarification about, I think it's coincidence more so, but so the spotted lanternfly like lookalike trees at the Tree of Heaven, which it does
Oh,
seem like that, but
yeah. Again, I can't answer that specifically. I don't know that they've done a research as to, why do they like the walnut and the Tree of Heaven since they look very similar. Is it
the
because
sumac, yeah.
it's sumac, right? I don't know. I'm sure somebody's doing some more information or more research on that. But at this time, they're really just trying to focus on what can we do, how we can contain it, and then how we can hopefully eradicate. I hate talking about eradicating anything, but this is definitely one that's going to be an issue for our agricultural.
Let's see.
Someone asked, excuse me, someone asked if there was any kind of repellent to keep them away from humans. And Patty and I didn't think so, but we wanted to run that by you.
Nothing that has come up in any of the literature that I've been reading. It's really just a nuisance. So yeah, they don't bite you. They land on you. I've sat under trees, and actually it was one that they don't really talk a lot about is our native oh, not pomegranate.
Persimmon.
Thank you. Persimmon trees. And I was sitting under a persimmon tree and I'm like, these things have leaves way up high, and all of a sudden these things are dropping on me, and crawling, and you can't really do anything, but they just land on you and you just brush them off. Well, or preferably smush them. Maybe brush them off and then smush them. But yeah, not that I know of a repellent per se.
And maybe just go over again. So someone asked about spraying them like they do for mosquitoes and why that's not gonna.
Oh, okay. So just with any kind of insecticide, most of the insecticides that even that they recommend here for the spotted lanternfly, or that they have in the recommendations are not specific only to spotted lanternfly. So there are a lot of beneficial insects that could be harmed if you're spraying and you don't have spotted lanternfly or any of the insects that you're trying to target. You could kill your beneficials, and then that'll cause your aphids and scale and everything else to kind of get out of whack because now you've taken away their native predators. So you really want to target specifically. That's why they suggest to target a tree of heaven or something like that, where it's this tree that maybe a maple. You know that this tree is just covered in spotted lanternfly, something like that, and just try to only treat that one tree. And it's going to be a battle. We're definitely going to see, especially for those of us in Atlantic Ocean County, for sure. It's definitely going to be bad this year.
I did see one more. I don't know what you're saying, Jean, but if your tree gets sooty mold, is there an easy way to get rid of it before it spreads?
So the sooty mold itself, how can I put it? So the sooty mold itself won't spread. The mold itself is not the killer per se of the tree or cause it's the sooty mold is growing on the honeydew. You get rid of the insects, you get rid of the honeydew. So it's the same thing with aphids on crepe myrtles or on a lot of different plants. And hollies, scale and hollies. If you can get rid of that insect or lessen the population, you lower the amounts of sugar sap, this honeydew that's on the leaves that then the sooty mold can grow on. There really isn't a way. You don't really want to power wash your tree because the power of a power wash spray is usually too strong. And you know, yes, if you could somehow wipe off the sooty mold or the honeydew before it grows the molds, it's possible, but it's really not something. If you get rid of the pest, the sooty mold, the plant will recover if it can. If that's kind of the best. I hate to say it, but that's the best way I could tell you on that
Yeah.
one.
Someone mentioned that killing when they're so numerous in parts of Pennsylvania, it's like a full-time job to kill them.
That is true. That is true. And I have heard that. And that's where I think, any kind of passive, whether it's the traps, the tapes, you definitely have to go out and clean them and change them. The tapes that go around the tree trunks, and pest barrier. That's the word I couldn't come up with. Sorry. Or the circle traps or anything like that to get them when you can't be there while you're at work. At least you have some way that you're getting rid of some of the population. It may be still a small part, but you're doing a part. And if everybody can kind of help bring these numbers down, then maybe some of our native uh, predators, birds, or maybe some other things can start helping us if we can help them.
I did see one more question.
Mhm.
In the countries where these originated,
Mhm.
they were just asking if they have recommendations, but
So in countries where these are native, they're really not a big problem because there are native or beneficial insects that are predators of these. And so I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, why can't they just bring them over here? Well, that's what they did with well, they didn't do that with the gypsy moth or the spongy moth. They brought it over to spin webs because they thought, you know, it would spin silk, the caterpillars, and no, they became an invasive pest instead. So now, what do? Bring another invasive? Possibly some. It's invasive to us because it's not native in our country. So now, if you bring in another pest from, not a pest, another insect from their county, it could go crazy here and then offset our native balance that's here. So it's not as easy. You know, they're looking into a lot of things, a lot of different insect possible biological controls. They are looking into some, I've heard some research is being done on some fungal, native funguses that we have, sort of like what we find when we're trying to treat caterpillars with Bacillus thuringiensis. They're looking into maybe some kind of fungus that will attack the insects without harming other plant hopper, or not plant hoppers. There's not that many, to be honest, plant hoppers that are great that I know of, but birds do eat normal plant hoppers. The birds they're finding, so that was one thing I didn't have in here. They didn't talk about in here, but there are, you know, they are finding. Penn State did ask for people to send pictures of things that have attacked the spotted lanternfly. So a lot of pictures had come in. There were some birds that ripped the wings off. They saw the red and they would rip the wings off the spotted lanternfly, so it couldn't keep going. There were what was it, praying mantis. There were wheel bugs, which is a type of an assassin bug that was eating. So there may eventually become a time where we can get this down enough that maybe some of our native predators will find, either if not a liking, at least attack these things and get them under control and help us.
I'm curious though, was the praying mantis the native kind or Chinese?
It was the Chinese.
No, seriously, like
Yeah.
maybe like the
Yeah.
non-native praying mantis is a natural predator where they both
Where
came
they came
from,
from.
you know?
Right. Right. I hate to say, you know, and I don't know that, so I don't want to, you know, speculate because I don't have a research specific on that.
I'm just wondering.
But
I'm just
yes,
wondering, you know?
it's possible. But the big thing is here, you know, we always talk about, oh, praying mantis, you know, we want to do our beneficial insects. And again, the Chinese praying mantis have become almost indigenous in a lot of our areas. But it can offset other things, and they are, what do they call them?
Non-selective.
Non-selective, non-selective pests or predators of, and they'll eat honeybees. They have,
Yeah.
you know, they're very few, but they have gotten hummingbirds from time to time. But they will get butterflies. They will get the things that that people do really want to keep, or
Yeah.
are trying to preserve.
Yeah.
So it's really not one thing that's going to do it all and be the one, you know, unfortunately, there's always exceptions to the rule.
Um, Eileen asked if you can shop vacuum them.
Sure.
You sure can try. Yeah.
Yep. You can any way you can get rid of them. Get them
Mhm.
in something that you can then gross, but smush them, smash them, suffocate. And I know there's a lot of people, Patty, in the audience that don't care to, you know, hurt insects in particular. But in this case, this is one of those that you got to be cruel to be kind.
I just handed it to somebody in the office who
Me? Is that what, is that what you're trying to say?
I figured Teresa.
Oh, that's true too. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's just one of those things that if you want to try to get a control, we have to try to, unfortunately, do something to get these guys managed or containable.
So now I do see a couple more if you want to keep
Okay.
going.
I'm good if you guys are good. So
Sure.
yeah.
Let's see. We saw that the spotted lanternfly landed on metal and concrete in sunny locations when they first started in Pennsylvania. Is there a quick way to capture them on those locations? You know, that made me kind of think, you know, the adults are out more in the fall, and definitely insects move way slower in the morning.
Yes.
So maybe that is kind of when you see a population in the fall, first thing in the morning, they'll probably be much slower.
Yes, they'll be much more lethargic. Patty and I noticed that on the Tree of Heaven near the office. With the colder mornings, they didn't die because it wasn't frozen, but they were definitely much more slower moving, so they were definitely easier to get.
Yeah.
Butterfly nets, anything with small netting to capture them if you're trying to swoop them up. But again, they will jump, so they'll jump back out. So, in something that you can contain and close them. They do show, there's lots of YouTube videos of people with water bottles and bringing it close, and the spotted lanternfly, the adult jumps right in. And yes, that's a great way for kids at a party. I think we were talking about that earlier today. Get the kids involved if you're at a summer party. Uh, have them capture, see who can get them as many in the bottle as once. But it is a way to capture them, and then you have to get rid of them still. Oh, great questions.
If someone asks what you do if you find or see the eggs high up in a tree and you can't get to them.
So, to be honest, a homeowner, there, as far as I know, there is not an ovicide. An ovicide is a insecticide, insecticide that targets just the egg stage of an insect. There are some ovicides that are out there on the market, but I believe they're commercial only. It's really going to be for a homeowner. One tree to spray would probably be a little prohibitive, but also how much of that spray is going to come down on whatever's below that tree? Your trees are rather large. It would be difficult. In a nursery situation, someplace where it's a commercially grown, this is their stock, their plants, this is their livelihood. So yes, they would be more likely to use a method like that, an ovicide and insecticides on younger trees to kill anything, because they can't move. They cannot sell that stock if it's got spotted lanternfly eggs or spotted lanternflies on it, or damage from spotted lanternfly. Just like any invasive pest, it's a big problem.
Someone was saying that they were up in New Brunswick at Rutgers, and there was thousands of them hanging out on the buildings. Yeah. So yeah, we definitely what did we see? Like 10 on a tree, 12 on a tree,
Yeah.
and that was in the fall. So this year is going to be
Yeah.
interesting for
A
sure.
lot for us in Ocean County, and I know there's a lot of people that were that had registered that were not from Ocean County. So I know there's a lot of you that are dealing and struggling. The numbers are astronomical. I think are overwhelming. And you can't just blanket spray and hope for the best, because you're going to kill so many other things that are doing good things for us in our environment. And you really need to be as selective as you can, and just try to get what you can. It's may be a losing battle, or seem like it now, but again, the more we do it, the more we stay consistent, the more chance we will reduce numbers, and then hopefully get some control going on there.
Some balance.
A balance, yes. I got to start my chakra.
They're still coming in. Do they eat bushes? Yeah,
Well, again, rose bushes,
roses.
roses, so yes, there are shrubs as well as trees. It just seems the trees have more surface area. So it's, I don't want to say, I don't know how to put it. Yes, they do eat some of the different shrubs. Now, again, if they're in large numbers, they can overwhelm a plant, just like anything. Too much sunlight can overwhelm a plant. So it's relatively speaking, but generally, I think most of the things, there were the vines, the wild vines, the rose bushes, wild grape, oriental bittersweet. The oriental bittersweet is also a host for or feeding food for these guys. So try to keep your weeds in check if you can, but obviously if you own acres and acres, this is going to be daunting and tough, but you just kind of do what you can, and know that it may be a small difference, but you are making a difference.
This is good. Oh, you know what? This is interesting. Somebody said they joined late and had a lot of trouble with their cucumbers last year. Is that a popular target for them? And I actually just read somewhere that they like cucumbers.
Yeah, I think I don't know specific because I don't have that right in front of me, but there are some vegetables that they will go for. So being vigilant and getting them before, if you have a large population in your area, it still may be a problem for you.
Yeah.
Um,
You know what? I
no
just read
matter
it
what
in
you
the
do.
management guide while I was eating my dinner. Cucumbers
Oh,
was on the list.
so Penn State does have this booklet, the Spotted Lanternfly Management. They have a paper copy, but also Patty and I'm going to send it out with our resource page. There's a link to it that's also on their website, on their Spotted Lanternfly website, that you can just look under management guide, and it talks about some of the different hosts. But again, 70 different plant species, that's a species. We're not talking about different types of specific individual, all lavender and it's lavender hidco, we're talking different plant species, genera. There is this plant genera. So
trees, shrubs, perennials, fruit crops. It's kind of
apple
all over
trees.
the place.
Apple trees were getting hit. A lot of orchards are getting hit very hard. And originally, when they thought this plant, yeah, it has wings. It's a very poor flyer. It actually is not. They can actually fly pretty far. Some are better than others, just like some other people are early birds. But there are some overachievers in these spotted lanternfly and move around a little faster than others too. So, yeah.
As their range increases too, their diet's probably going to change as it moves, to what's native to the area they got to.
And
Very true.
unfortunately, yes.
Yeah,
And
well,
unfortunately,
since they seem to eat, it seems to be growing all the time. But even here, it was like tree of heaven and grapevines were the things in the beginning.
yep. They were always the things that we saw them on, almost inevitably we'd always see it, but now maples, and now the more they're researching, the more plants
Right,
they're finding to add to that list. And again,
Yeah.
right.
sometimes they can be on things here and there. It's not their preferred host, but if they don't have a host because their preferred host isn't available in the area, they will try to eat. They want to survive. They want to survive and procreate. They want to rule the world, so to speak. So if we can help them contain them, we will do what we can. And again, these informational educational programs, no matter who offers them, is a great way to get people involved and get people to be cognizant and aware of what's going on in your environment.
I think that's good. I think they slowed down here. A lot of good programs. A lot of people were really grateful for all the information, and so a lot of the master gardeners were saying thanks for the information because they know when the calls come in.
They're going to be coming in, but we will, like I said, anybody that's registered, even if you're not on and you're going to be watching this as a recording, we will send out the information, and this will also be posted on our RCE of Ocean County website, where we have our past programs from other Know to Grow years, 2021 and 2020. We have our recorded programs there as well. So if you've missed any of our adventures in in IT and tech, you can come in and watch us progress as COVID started and kept going. And I just am really so glad that we are able to offer this opportunity. We never thought that Zoom or WebEx or online learning for us was going to be an option. And we're really grateful that we are able to reach so many more people. And we're grateful that you're along with the ride of coming along with us and learning along with us as well. So thank you everybody for joining us this evening. And Patty and Jean, of course, as
Thank you, Jean.
usual, thank you, the master gardeners, no matter what county
Thank
you're
you.
in. You guys do an awesome job, and you really, help us get that information out to the public. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jean.
Yeah.
Great
Thank you, Patty.
presentation,
Thank
Sue.
you, Sue.
You're welcome. Hopefully not to talk too fast.
It was good.
Okay.
It was good. All right, I'm going to hit the record off.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Did you get it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like you did. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.